Hello, Ginny OK Boomer here. Welcome to today's vlog. Today I want to give you an update on a very important gun rights case that I was discussing a few vlogs ago. There has been an interesting development that I want to share with everybody. The case is about New York City. In New York City, if you don't know, I know because I lived there for 40 years. Now I'm in Tennessee, but I can tell you that it's almost impossible to get a gun carry permit there, either open or concealed. It's almost impossible. You have to demonstrate that you're of good moral character. You have to fill out a 50-page questionnaire showing why you should be allowed to exercise a constitutional right. That's basically what it boils down to. So there is a suit right now, a case going, well, it's in the Supreme Court now. I had said in that earlier vlog that the case was supposed to be heard in December, but it turns out no, it's going to be heard tomorrow, the day after you're seeing this. I'm recording this Monday, November 3rd, I believe, which would be Wednesday, is the date that the arguments will be heard. Maybe it will be on tape well, I think they do tape them now, so you can listen to it later, but you can either live or afterwards, I think, hear the oral arguments. But there will be, I'm sure, a lot of commentary after, as there usually is, after arguments are made in the Supreme Court, to discuss just to kind of read the tea leaves and just give a sense of where the Supreme Court might come down when it finally issues a decision. I'm not sure. I think it would come sometime next year, but I'm not, maybe June. I'm not sure. Don't nail me down on that. But the argument will be in, well, the day after you're seeing this vlog, as I understand it. And well, it's very important because it'll set a precedent for some other cities. The problem all along is that there has been two Supreme Court cases affirming that the right to keep and bear arms, the Second Amendment, is an individual right. But lower courts and local jurisdictions have been just finagling ways to get around this very obvious, should be obvious, these two Supreme Court decisions. So now the Supreme Court is going to hear this case and I would assume issue a very definitive ruling that I am hoping will finally affirm that, well, if you're in New York, it's interesting. I read a story just the other day. I keep up with events in New York. Somebody, some drug kingpin, he had testified against other drug dealers some years ago, and he was put in the witness protection program for some reason. He's an idiot, I guess. He returned to his old neighborhood, which was, and maybe, I guess he must have, well, they knew who he was, I guess. They recognized him, but he returned to Harlem. That's where he lived, and he was shot. He was shot 5 times, drive-by shooting, I believe, about 2 blocks from where I used to live in Harlem. That was my last residence before I moved to Tennessee. I lived on 146th Street, between 145th and 146th, 7th Avenue, and this shooting was on 8th Avenue and 147th Street, so very close to where I used to live. So there's crime now with this horrible mayor, de Blasio, one of the reasons that finally got me to move, such a bad mayor and crime going up and all these shootings, but honest citizens cannot get a gun to defend themselves. So I am very, very interested in seeing the right to keep and bear arms finally enforced in New York City. I want to share a very interesting article. As is usually the case in these Supreme Court cases, you have the plaintiff and the defendant, but then you have amicus briefs. You have outside parties submitting briefs that argue one side of the issue or the other that the Supreme Court reads, pays attention to help them arrive at their decision. So they hear arguments not just from the plaintiffs and the defendant, but from the from interested parties. So this is a very interested party. So here is the headline. Black Lawyers Group. Black Lawyers Group says New York concealed carry restrictions are racist. A coalition of black lawyers says New York State's concealed carry restrictions are racist, and they are backing a historic challenge to the restrictions the Supreme Court will hear on November 3rd. This is the case I've been talking about. The New York State Rifle and Pistol Association, of which I was a member, by the way, for a while when I lived in New York. The New York State Rifle and Pistol Association is pressing the High Court to strike down the rules which require residents prove, quote, a special need for self-protection, unquote, in order to obtain a concealed carry permit. Black Attorneys of Legal Aid, that's the name of this organization, Black Attorneys of Legal Aid filed an amicus brief on behalf of 10 New York public defender offices and 3 legal assistance groups complementing that effort, arguing the rule has racist origins and continuing discriminatory effects. And it does. The gun control was originally, in many cases, maybe not all, I won't say all, but in many cases, was a way to keep black people from arming themselves, because people would have to, as I said, demonstrate a need for a gun, and it would be up to some bureaucrat. So a white bureaucrat could just deny a black applicant the right to own a firearm. So that is definitely, they're right. These black lawyers are right, this Black Lawyers Group, but also require residents to prove a special need for self-protection, or just be a celebrity. That if you're a celebrity or rich, you can get a permit. It's much easier. You have influence and you can get a permit, and that's the way. Donald Trump has a permit, as I mentioned earlier. Howard Stern, the radio personality, he has a concealed carry permit, and there are other people who, if you're an average person, if you're a wealthy person or somebody who has personal security, you can get a permit. But if you're somebody who, an average person who can't afford personal security and has to walk through Central Park at night alone, or just a block from where I used to live, you can't protect yourself. You can't get a gun. So that's what this case is about. So getting back to this article, I'm quoting this article, and by the way, I linked to it so you can read the whole thing. And as always, I urge you to read the whole thing. Quote, "We represent hundreds of indigent people whom New York criminally charges for exercising their right to keep and bear arms," unquote. The brief reads, quote, "Virtually all our clients are black or Hispanic, and that is no accident. New York enacted its firearm licensing requirements to criminalize gun ownership by racial and ethnic minorities. That remains the effect of its enforcement by police and prosecutors today," unquote. So that's a very good point. So what this person of my editorial comment, what the black lawyers are saying, that it was originally, as I said, the intent of these gun control laws was to keep black people from owning guns. Now you could say in New York today that there is no longer a racial motive, but the effect is the same, because a lot of black people, as I said, in my neighborhood, Harlem, it's not a lot of wealthy people in Harlem. So you're talking about poor minorities, blacks and Hispanics, and they can't get a gun because of these restrictive rules. Number one. Number two, even if you could get a permit, I think it's $250 or something for the permit. So this plaintiff or these amici, the black lawyers, they are exactly right. But getting back to the article, the gun rights plaintiffs say New York's, quote, proper cause, unquote, requirement makes it virtually impossible for all but a favored few, former police officers or celebrities, for example, to obtain a permit. They say that concealed carry is a functional nullity in New York State. And exactly right, as I was saying, almost impossible unless you're a former police officer or a celebrity or just very rich. About 10 states have similar laws, all of which could be called into question depending on the scope of the court's decision. The justices have never recognized the right to carry for self-defense outside the home, meaning the New York case could be of enormous consequence. As I was saying, the burdens on access are especially acute for minority applicants, the legal brief says. In the first place, many local law enforcement agencies who handle licensing under New York's system impose fees that price out indigent applicants. For example, I said about $250. I was wrong. For example, the New York Police Department charges more than $400 in fees to process a concealed carry application. And well, no, wow, it's even worse than I thought. So I was saying about $250 for the license. It looks like here, $400 just to process the application, which in almost every case will be refused, and you won't get your $400 back. So you can see how much of a disincentive this creates for an average person, and especially if you're a poor minority, or a poor white person, anybody. If you don't have $400 to throw away on an almost quixotic quest, almost certainly quixotic quest to get a gun permit, then you can, as I said, you see the disincentive. You can see how unfair this is. According to the brief, and this is an important point too, according to the brief, a person arrested for carrying a concealed weapon without a license in New York State is usually charged with second-degree criminal possession of a weapon, which is a violent felony. The lightest available penalty is 2 years in prison, followed by 2 years of supervised release. Minorities make up a disproportionate share of such defendants, the brief says. And that's the other thing. So if you arm yourself anyways because people are being shot in your neighborhood, I just told you about somebody being shot about a block and a half from where I live. Somebody was shot right across the street from me. Somebody was shot right on my doorstep. I understand because somebody else told me it was before I moved in, so I wasn't a witness to that one. But there was actually a wanted poster for the shooter on the door of my apartment building. You want to hear a funny story? I'll tell you what happened. When I went to look at the apartment, the door was open because some people were moving in or out or something, and there was a kind of a poster, but I couldn't see what was on the poster because I could only see the back of the poster because the door had been, with a piece of rope, was open. I figured it was just for some kind of charity event or maybe a missing kid or something. So I took the apartment, and then when I moved in, not too much later, I moved in, and this time the door was closed when I drove up in front of the apartment building, the movers and myself. So then I saw the poster, the wanted poster for a shooter in the neighborhood. So I moved in, I had signed the lease, and the way it is in New York, rents are so high, there was really nowhere else to go. Well, and I had signed a lease. So anyways, so I moved in, and then I was talking to somebody next door. There was some kind of a store next door just selling like cell phones and stuff. So I was talking to somebody there, and I asked about where did that shooting happen, and the guy said right on the doorstep. I didn't find out till I moved in. But anyways, So if that's happening around you and you get a gun, which you can, I mean, it's not hard to get one if you're willing to break the law in New York. So you get a gun, you carry it, and you get, especially if you're a minority, you can stop and frisk, and well, they cut back on that. And I could see that, stopping and frisking people, but to see if they have unlawful weapons. But that's the point. You could be an honest person wanting to defend yourself, and you're going to find yourself facing 2 years in jail. So you need a way for honest people need to be able to get a gun. And then, well, in New York City, so you'd have stop and frisk, but somebody would just be able, an honest, law-abiding citizen, here's my permit, I have a right to carry this gun, and that's it. But that's not the situation today. So, well, last paragraph here. The Supreme Court will hear arguments in the case number 20-843, New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin on Wednesday, again, November 3rd, this Wednesday, the day after you're seeing this. A decision is expected by summer of 2022. So that's when the case, the decision will be announced. So that's it for today. I just wanted to update everybody on that, especially if you're in New York, you want to pay attention to this. And I am just hoping, I am just praying that this decision comes out the right way. I'm pretty confident it will. I'm crossing my fingers. I'm really hoping. And if the case comes down so that New York has to allow concealed carry, then, and it shall issue, and the burden is on New York City to prove why you can't carry a gun, then I will applaud, because it will affect all these other cities, these other states. It will affect them too. The Supreme Court, it will be the law for the entire country. So I will applaud that, but I'm also going to break out the popcorn, because I can't wait to see how liberal heads would explode, especially in New York City. New York City is overwhelmingly liberal, and they will just be freaking out. They will just be freaking out. And that actually raises another issue, because what if you're allowed to concealed carry, but every store in the city has a sign up, no weapons allowed inside. But then the other part would be, well, if it's concealed, do you have a right to search everybody? Are they going to put metal detectors up in front? So it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out. Maybe there would be another court case if so many stores, if you have the right, but it's impossible to exercise it. You see what I'm saying? So that's it for today. Thanks for stopping by. As always, I appreciate the time you spend with me. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions for future topics, there's a comment section below the video. You could also subscribe. I love getting new subscribers. Share this video with anybody you think would benefit from it. But most of all, come back and see me again. I would love to see all of you again. I look forward to seeing all of you again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.